Welcome back to Your 1230, the only podcast where our guests tell their story with the help of 12 questions in just 30 minutes. I'm your host, Mike Solitro, and today we are thrilled to be joined by Ken Paskins. Ken is the founder of GCE Strategic Consulting and The Shift Spot. He's an accomplished CEO, COO, and executive coach. Brings a broad range of leadership experience, including operations, sales, acquisitions, strategic planning, and P&L management, while leading teams north of 400 plus people across North America and Europe for Fortune 100 companies such as Oracle. Raised in Noblesville, Indiana, and a graduate of Purdue, Ken grew up in a hope and pray entrepreneurial family, meaning that his family lived in either a boom or bust state, depending on which idea made it and which one ended up with the lights being turned off. Ken, welcome.
Yep.
We are really
Thank
excited
you.
to be speaking with you.
Yeah, great to be here, Mike. Appreciate it.
Of course. And there was a lot of things that jumped out to me in your bio. The last part is where I want to start.
Okay.
Growing up in that environment, I'm sure there were things that you understand as a kid, things that you don't pick up as a kid. Looking back, what was it like, looking backward, and what was it like being in the moment there?
I mean, man, it forms me. So my parents were true entrepreneurs, and that's why I took the corporate route to start, to be quite honest. And they put all their money on Red 32. Like literally, there'd be some months we go to Vail and money's raining out of the sky. I'm there with my little clip-on tie, eating lobster, and life is great. And I'm not kidding you. 4 months later, a business would move in, put my dad under, and they never really saved money. And suddenly they can't pay the phone bill. And I remember being a young kid and my mom coming to get me and driving me down to the bank to borrow money to pay the darn phone bill. Right. So that was very impressionable because as a kid, you feel like you're safe 1 minute and in danger the next. And it was a constant flip flop. So I actually, it was very formative in everything I did in life, maybe very conservative, and I put a lot of thought and I'm very methodical in what I do. So
So even as a kid, you realize the uncertainty of the environment that you were in, and you steer
yeah,
yourself toward, we'll call it the conservative corporate kind of
yeah,
ladder. What did
yeah.
you envision yourself doing when I get big? This is what I want to do. When I'm not in this house, I want to
Well,
do.
well, so that's a different question. When I was a young kid, what I envisioned myself doing, and you're probably too young to even know this guy, but I envisioned myself being Jacques Cousteau. So he was a famous marine biologist, and I used to watch him on TV, and I got my scuba certification when I was 12. So that's what I envisioned. But as I got a little bit older, I knew that eventually someday I wanted to own my own company, but I wanted to go out there and learn from some of the best out there and gain experience and everything. And that's something my father and his father and his father didn't do. I mean, they taught themselves everything in the business. So, and you can imagine, teaching yourself about leadership and finances and operations all by yourself. There's a lot of chance for mistakes, and they made them.
Okay. So I love the marine biologist part. So that is true to where a lot of 12-year-olds will kind of see themselves.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
but
Not a business person, something boring like that, right?
that's there you go. But you end off on an interesting thought that teaching yourself all of the facets of running a business, including leadership, uh,
Yeah,
you you've had the opportunity, besides leadership, operation sales, many different pieces, and you've worked with businesses, small and large, that do
yep,
these things. How
yep.
did you realize that what you had learned in your role was a skill that was transferable outside of the role, and that could work for your clients, for these businesses of all kind of all different manners?
Yeah, well, there's several different types of people out there, and some people can go from big company to small company and adapt. Some can go from small to big and adapt, and some can't do either. They're kind of stuck in their ways, if you will. And I guess I'm fortunate that I can do that, if you will. So I got all this great training from companies like Oracle and other. So I came out of software for several decades and high level leadership positions out of there. So I gained that. But then later in my career, after managing a large team and traveling 150,000 miles a year, I realized that I didn't want to do that anymore. So I literally just dropped out of corporate America and I started working with some different entrepreneurs and business owners in a variety of ways and sitting on boards as an advisor and everything. And I just saw all these same mistakes. And then I reflected back and I saw the same mistakes my dad would make, right? Such as not proper hiring practices, and then suddenly they're getting sued, or throwing bodies at problems rather than systemizing and processing. So I saw a lot of the things that I took for granted and learned in the system, or through instruction or training or mentoring, if you will. And I saw that a lot of, CEOs didn't have that, right? I mean, 50% of CEOs actually, believe it or not, learn on the job, like my father. So that's the school of hard knocks right there.
So going back into at least collaborating with entrepreneurs, if not becoming one yourself, was
Yeah.
there, outside of kind of working next to and seeing I can do this, was there a moment that was kind of like, I'm ready to leave the safety or the conservative nature of corporate, and I want to go back, even though I've seen what I've seen, and I'm seeing some of the same mistakes rear their head. I think I'm ready to do this. Was there a flashpoint, or was this over time?
Well, so after I left corporate America, I started GCE Strategic Consulting, which came before the Shift Spot, and that's where I served for some time as a fractional COO or CEO. And I was fortunate financially through the years to put some cash together to support myself and make that leap. And I was also fortunate to just have connections and start building and start working immediately. So I forget your question, Mike. I think your question is, when did I realize that those things would transition? Is that correct?
Yeah, I was kind of wondering, you had the experience as a kid saying, this
Yeah.
entrepreneurship, not for me. I don't want to go back into that world. And then coming back around saying, okay, I think I'm ready. I'm ready to dip my toe back in.
Yeah. Okay. So after just going from corporate to then that consulting role and operating as a fractional person, I felt that I had the skills, the confidence. I was adding enough value. I was seeing things that other folks weren't seeing, if you will. And I think it really just comes to that, to be quite honest.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm interested by that phrase, things that others are not seeing. Is
Yeah.
that something that is that something that you feel that can be taught to others, just to look the same way that you are, or is that something that's like, this is innate in me, and I can teach you what we're looking at, how to deal with it, but you can't necessarily teach what
Yeah,
it's like to, because you're ahead of time.
that's a great question. That's a whole nature versus nurture dilemma, right? I don't know if I can answer that, because um, when I step into companies as a fractional executive, specifically, I'd be taking over a company and help them get to the next level, right? And there's lots of executives there that I'll begin to work with, and I just know that they're not going to get it. And I'll try to train them and instruct them. But, I think that things can be taught. I believe that things can be taught, but I believe you also have to have some of that inner stuff as well, right? That drive, that ability to see things strategically, right? And think like a chessboard versus a checkers board, right? See the bigger picture per se. I don't think all of that can be taught. And that's why some people rise to the ranks and some people don't, right? Some people are always questioning, why have I always been a first line manager and I cannot make it to that next step? Those are some of the things, in my opinion. But how much of that is based upon personal, individual versus taught? That's a great question. I don't know if I actually have the answer to that. And I think that's what biologists and others battle up with all the time. So
I'll take that as a good answer. So
yeah, thank you.
you mentioned the Shift Spot. Where does that name come from?
Well, I can't take credit for that. I'm a horrible person with names. I am not a marketer. I will never I will never brag about my marketing capabilities. As a matter of fact, GC Strategic Consulting, actually, since I couldn't think of a name, stands for Gabrielle, Chloe, and Emma, my three daughters, right? The Shift Spot was invented by my partner, Winter Baserva. And basically, it's the whole theme around that is a place where business owners can go, CEOs and business owners can go to make radical shifts in their lives, right, and begin to live a better life and start working on the business versus in the business. But that's where the name came from. I'm sure she would do a much better job of articulating that journey than I would. But
well, I have plenty of follow-ups from that, but I wanted to pick up one thing that you mentioned earlier that I will usually don't bring up, because most people don't like talking about it, but systems and process, you
Yeah,
mentioned as being the foundation for a
yeah,
lot of your success and what you do. How do
yeah.
you make that interesting, if not to people who when they hear the phrase work on the business, they don't know what that means.
Yeah.
How do you show them the systems and process the way to do that?
Well, so you're right. It's boring, right? And a lot of people don't like that. And I think a lot of CEOs and owners don't like that specifically, right? But it's necessary to scale the business. It's necessary to mitigate risk, and human error out of the business, right? It's necessary if you want to keep a great client relationship, right? And maintain data integrity, protect yourself from lawsuits, right? Drive efficiencies. All those things are necessary. So I guess my counter would be, what is the ultimate goal for the business? Is it to actually grow? Is it to exit? Is it to just be more efficient and have it run and operate on its own and spin off cash flow? And if any of those answers are yes, it's something you have to take in consideration, even though it's boring. Get somebody else that's not bored with it to figure it out.
I agree wholeheartedly that it's the way to kind of figure out what your current problems are, and then that's how you need to build your solution. That often that's the answer, whether it's to scale, whether it's to grow, whether it's to eliminate something that's not working. Generally, there's a system that's either not fully functioning or one that should be put in place. So
Hey,
that's
things break down in two areas, man: people or process, period. Right. So
well said.
yeah.
I too am a terrible marketer and considered naming my first business after my oldest, which would have been a mistake because I would have had two. I've had two kids since, and I would have been tough to explain that. So I get the
Yeah,
initials of three
exactly.
kids.
Yeah.
But you mentioned your partner, which I've done a little bit of my homework. I know that's also your wife. So what is that relationship like? How is it working with partnering with the person that you're married to?
Yeah, it's phenomenal actually. I think she was a little nervous, to be quite honest, to start, and she had people advise against it heavily. And a lot of ways we're wired the same, but a lot of ways we're actually wired quite similarly. She's creative, and that's why she could come up with a shift spot. Mine probably would have been Ken's place or something like that, something pretty boring. But it's fun. It's fun. So we challenge each other. We both do a very good job of staying in our lanes, even though our lanes aren't defined. And it's really interesting because things pop up. We know that somebody has it. We don't even discuss who owns it, but it's actually worked out quite well. So
I find it fascinating. My wife and I have talked about working together professionally, and you describe it in a way that very similar to us. She's the creative one. She would be the one naming. She'd be the one marketing, and
yeah.
I'd be behind the sign at Mike's place. So I get it. Over your shoulder, there's a wheel of
Yep.
member benefits. So for
Yeah.
those not on video, could you talk a little about that? And it looks like that's what the foundation of the shift spot is. Is that a good
Yeah,
guess?
yeah, you're correct. So the shift spot is made up of, we have 144 events through the year, and at a very high level, it's an online coaching and peer advisory community. And if you can imagine, we've got experts that come in on a monthly basis. Every month is broken down into a specific area. So, for example, the month of August is human capital and winning the talent game. So, actually, we're going to offer that up for free for the month of August. Just that one piece of the wheel for people to come in and check it out. But if they go to shiftspot.com/win, they can do that. But the different aspects on the wheel, if you can imagine the user journey, if you will, you start and you do this thing called a gap analysis. And that is a very intensive questionnaire that walks people through their business, hundreds of questions, operations, finance, you name it, and identifies areas of opportunity that could be preventing you from scaling. We'll provide you with an accountability coach that works with you on a weekly basis, holds you accountable. And then you got sessions through the week that you can jump into, and should you choose, or watch online should you not have the time. And some of those events are really cool, where it's a virtual room professionally facilitated with other CEOs. And we'll look at some of their deepest and toughest problems, such as, hey, I've got to fire my number 2 person. How do I go about that? I've never done that. And we'll help come up with solutions and ideas for them. But yeah, that's a high level with the wheel without getting too granular.
Perfect. Thank you. We will post the link in the show notes. And I think we were talking before we hit record. Those are Wednesday evenings in August. Is that
Yeah,
kind of right?
yeah. It's Wednesdays at 11:30 Eastern, and it starts the 9th, and it's every Wednesday. So you can just go to the shiftspot.com/win, and they can sign up. And we're excited about it. We do this like once a quarter, where we'll have some big talent come in and invite outsiders to come check it out and just see that one sliver of the pie per se.
Very nice. And for those thinking about taking the leap to either work with an accountability coach, get some direction, have some other eyes in their business, what can they expect on this call where they would what would they get from it? What would it be like for them?
Well, the accountability calls for the members specifically, right? So if that's the question, if it's tied to the accountability call in the program or something else, maybe you could clarify for me there, please.
Well, I guess I talk to CEOs and entrepreneurs all the time who are
Yeah,
thinking about ways that they can improve their business and working with
gotcha.
others, but they don't know what's available and they don't know what it's like once they get started. So what can they expect either working
Yeah,
with you at the shift spot or jumping
yeah.
onto one of these Wednesday calls?
Yeah, so that's the thing that's cool about the shift spot. So as I explained, I was a fractional executive with GCE for years, right? And this is sort of the invention or the brainchild or my legacy of coming out of that, because working with dozens and dozens of CEOs and owners, I started to see all these common themes, if you will, and I wanted to help them get to the next level. And I looked at, and to your question, I'm getting to it, Mike. I looked at all the things that owners can do, right? They can go out and get an MBA or get more schooling. They can hire an expensive fractional person like myself. They can hire an expensive executive coach. By the way, both of those are single optics, right? They could join programs like EO. They could join Vistage or YPO. They could go hire a board. So I looked at all those options, and honestly, I feel that the shift spot brings the best of class of all those. We bring experts to the table. We help facilitate with other CEOs and everything to solve some of their deepest problems. We allow them to do it live or online at their choosing when they want. We provide them with an accountability coach and a full gap analysis across their entire organization. So that's what was the brainchild around this, and hopefully I strayed a little bit. You can bring me back with one of your questions, if you will. I don't know if I answered it.
You answered it.
Owners need to put somebody in their camp, and there's lots of different ways out there. I believe personally that the shift spot is the best way out there, but have somebody on your side that's going to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear, and point out the problems with your company so that you can improve. And do it for yourself and do it for your employees as well.
Yeah, I mean, the two things that I hear there that are invaluable are the other eyes or somebody who's outside of your business taking a look to give you a fresh perspective or to even ask questions of ideas or assumptions you might be taking for granted. And then two, with your model, there's a foundation and a starting point. But I would, you haven't said it directly, but I would bet that this is not a one size fits all. This is not every business is going to follow these 10 steps. That you've got something that in your program that is built specifically for them and their situation. And that's really beneficial to business at any level. So it's a slam dunk.
Yeah.
Changing gears for a moment, I did tell you there was a question I was going to ask you. But,
Now I'm nervous. Go ahead.
How does one become an ex-marathoner?
Yeah, thanks. So this is winter's right up on me. But
Okay.
I guess after you get done doing marathons and stop training and turn to biking and do other things, that I guess that makes you an ex-marathoner. But yeah, I noticed that on whatever the profile that she built for me knew. But it's like, yeah, what's the saying? I'm not a Marine, but there's no such thing as an ex-Marine. I'm still a marathoner, just not in training anymore.
Do you still run, or has running been totally swapped for
I
biking?
run less. I spend more time biking anymore. So I've got a passion for road biking anymore. And I will admit, it's been my life dream to get up and do the Boston Marathon. And I forget what age. I think it was 42. I think the time that I had to do is like a 7:26 per mile, and I could not get there. And I was so jealous. I didn't know this either. I was so jealous of a guy on my team at that time that had a little bit of weight and been to Boston 5 times. And he finally let me in. He's like, oh yeah, if you live in Boston, if you volunteer or do this or whatever, you can run in the marathon. It's like, that's cheating, man. That's what a next marathoner is.
Qualify is no joke for Boston. So
Yeah,
I applaud you for going that route.
yeah.
The other line in your bio that I wanted to ask you about, 25 countries, very impressive. What is the last one you visited and what's the next one?
The next one is Portugal. So we're going there 2 weeks in September. What was the last one? I don't have a clue. I'm guessing Greece. I think possibly Greece, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, Portugal soon, and excited about that. Outside of Scotland, those are the only 2 countries I haven't been to in Europe, and Portugal, for whatever reasons, always been on my bucket list to see Porto and all that.
Okay. And are you a traveler you're seeing all of the historical sites? Are you going to go sit on the beach? Do you do a little bit of both? What do your trips look
both.
like?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah, both. Yeah. So we're going to do some grape crushing in Portugal. We're going to do some beach time, and we're going to see some castles. So we like to throw it all in.
Mix it up. I love it. Very nice.
Yeah.
And the last thing I need to ask you about on these fun facts, avid chef, but no recipes.
That's correct.
Which one came first, the skills as a chef or the throwing the recipes in the trash can?
The skill as a chef. I mean, so what I didn't share earlier about my father, the reason probably so much boom and bust, he was in the restaurant industry, right? So my father was a chef. His father was a chef. Matter of fact, another silly little fact, during the Great Depression, my grandfather's name was Beanie, and he was from Indiana, and invented the thing called Beanie's Weenies. Right. So you see the little cans at the grocery store that came from him. Never got a royalty for it, never got paid for it, but that was his invention. And he did that to help people during the Great Depression. But I've just always been, my cousin was a sous chef at the Rainbow Room, just always been around it, but knew I'm not stupid enough to own a restaurant because of the crazy hours and how tough it is. And I'm that type of person. It makes my love of my life jealous. I can go to a restaurant, try a bite, go home and create it. So
I could see why that would be a enviable skill to have.
And I love it too, actually. It's a stress reliever for me. So
okay. As a terrible chef, it only induces stress. So it's good to hear that the better you get at it, the more stress relief it brings.
Yeah.
So we will post the link to the Shift Spot, to the upcoming Wednesday events. Where else can our listeners find you? Is that the best place to connect if they want to learn more?
Yeah. Go to theshiftspot.com, check us out there. And also one thing I wanted to do for your guests, this is a little extra, that gap analysis that I mentioned. So that's normally a $5,000 value when I would do that at our consulting firm. And we're going to offer this up for free for 2 of your listeners. If they go to theshiftspot.com/gap, they can fill that out. And there's going to be there are a lot of questions, but there's going to be simple things such as, do you have financial controls? And some might go, I don't even know what a financial control is. So we'll help them understand that if they don't. But it will show them, and it's eye-opening to show, here's what I know about my company, and here's what I don't, and here are the areas of opportunity and the things that could be holding me back. And then plug in the code, your 1230, no slash or anything, and we'll open that up to 2 of your listeners.
That's very generous of you. Thank you, Ken. We will certainly post all that information. Thank you for making that available to 2 of our listeners. And then just wrapping up here, I do feel like we've covered a lot of ground. I am known for jumping all over this places, but is there anything I didn't ask you that I probably should have?
No, I'm scared to give you any more questions. No. This has been actually a very fun interview. I like your style and everything, but I've enjoyed it, Mike. I really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate it. And this has been fun on my end as well. So wish you nothing but the best. Thank you for joining us, and I look forward to doing it again.
Likewise. Take care.